You paid for me. Now do it. Get it over with. Her voice cracked like broken glass, but Grant McCade's hands froze on the reins. He'd just pulled her off an auction block in illegal chains, paid $20 to save her from worse men. But she thought he was one of them. She thought freedom was just another word for ownership. And when she lifted her wrist to show him that scar, the one he'd bandaged 8 years ago, his heart stopped beating. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button and stay with me until the very end of this story. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this journey goes. Now, let's dive in. Grant McCade knew what hell looked like. He'd seen it in the war boys screaming in mud flags soaked in blood nobody remembered spilling. He'd seen it in his father's eyes the night the old man came home with land deeds that didn't belong to him. And now he was seeing it again, standing in a barn in 1869 Texas, watching an auctioneer sell a girl who had no business being sold. "Do I hear $5? The man shouted. His shirt stuck to his chest with sweat. $5 for this one. Silent obedient won't give you trouble." The crowd, maybe 20 men, maybe less, muttered and spat tobacco juice into the dirt. Grant stood in the back, hat pulled low. His hands were shaking. On the wooden crate, barefoot and bound in rusted iron cuffs, stood a girl who wouldn't look at anyone. Her dress hung in rags. Her hair fell across her face. But Grant could see her wrists. That scar. Thin and white, curved like a crescent moon. His stomach dropped. $4. The auctioneer's voice cracked. "3, come on, gentlemen, she eats like a bird." Laughter rippled through the barn. Grant's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. $2 and she's yours. $20. The words came out before Grant could stop them. The barn went silent. Every head turned. "What did you say?" the auctioneer asked. Grant stepped forward. $20. Cash. A man near the front laughed. "Hell, McCade, you drunk. You can buy a horse for that." "I know what I'm buying." The auctioneer's grin spread wide. "Well, I'll be damned. Sold." Grant walked to the platform and pulled a leather pouch from his coat. He counted out the bills slowly. The whole time the girl's eyes never left him. She knew. God help him, she knew exactly who he was. The auctioneer tossed him a key. "Get her off my property. After that, she's your problem." Grant climbed onto the crate. The girl flinched when he reached for her wrists. "Hold still," he said quietly. She didn't respond, but she stopped pulling away. The first cuff clicked open. The skin beneath was raw and infected. The second cuff fell. She rubbed her wrist like she couldn't believe they were free. "Let's go," Grant said. She didn't move. "I said let's..." "Why?" Her voice was hoarse. "Why'd you pay for me?" Grant's throat tightened. "Because you shouldn't be here." "But I am." She lifted her chin. "And now you own me." "No. You gave him money. To get you out." "Why?" Grant looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the little girl who used to follow him around her family's farm, asking questions about horses and stars and why the sky turned colors at sunset. "Because I owed your family a debt," he said. Her eyes went cold. "My family's dead." "I know." "Then you can't pay them back, Mr. McCade." The way she said his name like she was naming a gravestone made his chest hurt. "No," he admitted. "I can't." They rode in silence. Grant's horse moved slow beneath the weight of 2 riders. The girl sat behind him, hands gripping the saddle body rigid as iron. 10 minutes passed. 20. Then, "You gonna do it here?" Grant pulled the reins. The horse stopped. "What?" "You heard me." Her voice was steady now, rehearsed. "You paid for me. Now do it. Get it over with." Grant twisted in the saddle. The look on her face, resigned, empty, bracing for pain, hit him like a fist. "Jesus Christ," he breathed. "You think that's why?" Isn't it? She lifted her chin. I know how this works. I've seen what men do when they buy girls. I'm not those men. You gave him $20 to stop someone worse from buying you. Then what do you want from me? The question hung between them. Grant turned back around. He stared at the empty road. Nothing, he said. I want nothing from you. Liar. I'm trying to pay back a debt I can't pay back. That's all this is. Silence. Then, you can't bring them back. I know. So what's the point? Grant didn't have an answer for that. The horse started moving again. Behind him, the girl's grip on the saddle loosened. Just a little. The ranch appeared as the sun dropped toward the horizon. Small house, sagging porch, barn with missing boards, fences that leaned like drunks. Grant dismounted and offered his hand. She ignored it and slid off herself, landing hard. This is it, she asked. Yeah. It's falling apart. I know. She wrapped her arms around herself. Where do you want me to sleep, barn floor? Grant frowned. There's a room. Small, but it's got a bed. She stared at him. A bed. Yeah. And you expect me to believe that? It's the truth. Her laugh was sharp and bitter. Men like you don't give girls like me beds. Grant felt something crack inside him. I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm telling you what's available. You want the room, take it. You don't sleep wherever you want. He walked past her toward the house. Wait, she called. He stopped. What's your angle? She asked. What do you really want? Grant turned. I want to stop seeing your father's face every time I close my eyes. I want to stop feeling like a coward. And I want to give you something that should have been yours 8 years ago. What's that? A choice. She stared at him for a long moment. I don't even know your name, Grant said. Silence. Then, Lena. Lena? He nodded. The room's yours if you want it. He walked inside and left the door open behind him. After a minute, she followed. The room was small. Bed, chest, window. Nothing special. Lena stood in the doorway like she was waiting for a trap to spring. There's a latch, Grant said, pointing to the inside of the door. Locks from your side. Why would you give me a lock? So you feel safe. I don't. Maybe you will eventually. He started to leave, then stopped. That scar on your wrist, he said quietly. I wrapped that wound. You were 10 years old hiding in a cellar with your brother. I told you that you were safe. Then I ran like a coward and left you there. Lena's whole body went rigid. I remember, she whispered. Grant nodded and stepped into the hall. He pulled the door shut. A moment later, he heard the latch slide into place. Good, he thought. Lock me out. I deserve it. Grant sat at the kitchen table with a bottle of whiskey. He didn't drink it, just stared at it. The lantern flickered. Shadows danced on the walls. He'd been 16 when it happened. His father had made a deal with Confederate soldiers, told them the Cartwright farm was hiding Union supplies. It was a lie. But it didn't matter. They came at night, burned the house, killed Robert and his wife. Grant had tried to warn them. Rode out in the dark, desperate and stupid. By the time he arrived, the flames were already climbing. He'd found Lena in the cellar with her baby brother. The boy was dead. Lena's wrist was bleeding from broken glass. Grant had wrapped it with a strip of his shirt. You're safe now, he'd told her. Then he'd left her there alone, orphaned with nothing but ashes. Now she was 20 feet away, locked behind a door, thinking he was just like every other man who'd tried to own her. Grant closed his eyes. He didn't deserve forgiveness, but he'd try anyway. Morning came cold. Grant woke slumped at the table. His neck was stiff. His head pounded. He made coffee and fried eggs, then knocked on Lena's door. No answer. I made breakfast, he called. I'm leaving a plate out here. He set it on the floor and walked away. An hour later, he came back. The plate was gone. Relief washed over him. At least she was eating. Lena didn't come out all morning. Grant worked outside, fixing fences, feeding chickens, clearing brush. The sun climbed. Sweat soaked his shirt. His hands blistered. Around noon, he went inside for water. She was standing in the kitchen. Grant stopped. "You got more water?" she asked. "Yeah." He filled a cup and set it on the table. She didn't move. "It's not poisoned," he said. "I know." "Then why aren't you drinking it?" "Because I'm trying to figure you out." Grant almost smiled. "Let me know when you do." She crossed the room, picked up the cup, and drank. When she finished, she set it down and looked at him. "You said I have a choice," she said. "What are my options?" "You can stay, you can leave, you can do whatever you want." "And if I stay?" "You work if you want. Eat when you're hungry. Sleep in that room. That's it." "What do you get out of it?" "Peace of mind, maybe." Lena studied him for a long moment. "You're not like the others," she said quietly. "No, but you're still guilty." "Yeah." "Why?" Grant leaned against the counter. "Because I was there. Because I could have done more. Because I left you. You were 16. Old enough to know better." Lena set the cup down. "I don't forgive you. I don't expect you to. But I don't hate you either. Not yet." Grant exhaled slowly. "Fair enough." They stood there in silence. Finally, Lena spoke. "I'll stay, for now." "All right." "But if you touch me, I won't." "Or try anything." "I won't," Grant repeated firmly. "You have my word." Lena's mouth twitched. "Your word doesn't mean much to me yet." "Then I'll earn it." She almost smiled. Almost. "We'll see," she said. 2 days passed. Lena stayed mostly in her room, but she started coming out more for meals, for water, sometimes just to sit on the porch. She didn't talk much, but she watched everything. Grant worked the land and gave her space. He didn't push, didn't ask questions. On the third day, she spoke first. "You're doing this wrong," she said. Grant looked up from the fence post he was hammering. "What?" "The fence. You're doing it wrong." He frowned. "You know how to build a fence." "My father taught me." Grant handed her the hammer. "Show me." She hesitated, then took it. She adjusted the post, tested the angle, and drove the nail in with 3 clean strikes. "Like that," she said. Grant stared at the post. "Huh, that's better." "I know." They worked in silence for a while, side by side. "Why'd you really buy me?" Lena asked suddenly. "I told you. No." She set down the hammer. "The real reason. Not the guilt. Not the debt. Why?" Grant straightened. He wiped sweat from his forehead. "Because when I saw you standing on that block," he said slowly, "I saw that little girl in the cellar. The one I failed. And I thought, maybe if I could save you now, it would mean I wasn't completely worthless back then." Lena's expression softened. Just a little. "That's stupid," she said. "Yeah. But it's honest." "Yeah." She picked up the hammer again. "All right. Let's finish this fence." That night, storm clouds gathered. Grant was inside cleaning his rifle when he heard hoofbeats. He set the gun down and walked to the window. 3 riders. The man in front wore a sheriff's star. Grant's blood ran cold. He stepped onto the porch just as they reached the fence line. "McCade," the sheriff called. His name was Dalton, a man who'd made his career looking the other way. "Heard you made an interesting purchase." "I don't know what you're talking about." Dalton grinned. Sure you do. $20 for a girl who wasn't supposed to be sold. People are asking questions. Then tell them to ask the auctioneer. Can't. He left town. Dalton leaned forward in his saddle. Where is she? None of your business. Actually, it is. That girl's family had a reputation. Traitors, sympathizers. And now you're harboring her. Grant's jaw clenched. Her family was murdered for land. You know it. I know it. Everyone knows it. Careful, Grant. You're starting to sound like a sympathizer yourself. One of the other riders, a thin man with a scar on his cheek, spat into the dirt. You really gonna die for some broken girl? Get off my land, Grant said quietly. Dalton studied him, then reached into his coat. He pulled out a single bullet and tossed it. It landed at Grant's feet. Think about what you're doing, Dalton said. Next time I come back, you'd better be ready to use that. He turned his horse and rode away. Grant stood there until they disappeared. Then he picked up the bullet. Behind him, the door opened. Lena stepped onto the porch. They'll be back, she said. I know. You could send me away. They'd leave you alone. Grant turned to face her. Is that what you want? No. Then we stand together. Lena looked at him. Really looked at him, and something shifted in her expression. Why are you doing this? She asked softly. Because 8 years ago I ran. I'm not running anymore. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Lena stepped closer. You know this might get you killed. Yeah. And you're still doing it. Yeah. She shook her head slowly. You really are an idiot. Grant almost smiled. Yeah, I know. The storm hit an hour later. Rain hammered the roof. Lightning split the sky. Wind howled through the cracks in the walls. Grant and Lena sat at the kitchen table. The lantern flickered between them. You know how to shoot? Grant asked. No. I'll teach you. Why? Because if they come back, I might not be enough. Lena was quiet for a moment. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small silver pocket watch. She set it on the table. Grant's breath caught. You recognize it? She asked. He stared at the initials carved on the back. R.C. Robert Cartwright. Yeah, he whispered. I took it from the ashes. It's all I have left of him. Lena's voice was steady, but her hands shook. Your father sold us out for land. You know that, right? Yes. Were you there when they burned the house? I got there after it started. I tried to warn your family, but I was too late. Why didn't you stay? Why didn't you help us? Grant's throat tightened. Because I was 16 and scared and didn't know what to do. Because my father was one of the men responsible, and I didn't know how to stand up to him. Because I was a coward. You wrapped my wrist. That's not enough. No, Lena agreed. But it's something. Thunder cracked overhead. I don't forgive you, Lena said quietly. I know. But I'm starting to understand you. Grant looked up. What does that mean? It means you're not the monster I thought you were. You're just broken. Like me. The lantern flickered. Maybe we can be broken together, Grant said. Lena almost smiled. Maybe. The storm passed before dawn. Grant woke to soft light and the sound of birds. He was still at the table, head resting on his arms. Lena was gone. Panic shot through him. He stood quickly and checked her room. Empty. He ran outside. She was standing in the middle of the field, barefoot, staring at the sunrise. Lena. She turned. I wasn't running. Grant exhaled. Scared me. Good. Now you know how it feels. He walked over to her. What are you doing out here? Watching the sun come up. I haven't done that in years. They stood side by side in silence. I had a dream last night, Lena said. About my father. He was standing in a field just like this one, and he looked happy. Not angry, not scared, just happy. That sounds like a good dream. It was. She paused. When I woke up, I realized I couldn't remember his voice anymore. Isn't that strange? Grant's chest ached. I'm sorry. Don't be. She turned to look at him. I think it means I'm ready to stop living in the past. What does that look like? I don't know yet, but I think it starts with fixing things. She gestured toward the broken fence. You still need help with that. Grant nodded. Yeah, I do. Then let's get to work. They walked back toward the house together. The sun climbed higher. The air smelled like rain and earth and new beginnings. And for the first time in 8 years, Grant felt like maybe, just maybe, he could breathe again. By midday, they'd fixed 3 fence posts. Lena worked fast, her hands sure and steady. Grant watched her out of the corner of his eye, marveling at how quickly she'd gone from broken to capable. You're staring, she said without looking up. Sorry. Don't be sorry. Just stop. Grant almost laughed. Yes, ma'am. They worked in comfortable silence until Lena spoke again. What happens when the sheriff comes back? We deal with it. How? Honestly, I don't know. Lena set down her hammer. That's not very reassuring. I know, but it's the truth. She studied him for a long moment. You'd really fight for me, even though you barely know me anymore. Yes. Why? Because you deserve someone to fight for you, and because I'm tired of running. Lena's eyes glistened, but she blinked quickly and looked away. You're gonna get yourself killed. Maybe. And you're okay with that. If it means you're safe, yeah. She shook her head slowly. You're insane. Probably. But you mean it. Every word. Lena picked up the hammer again. Her voice was soft when she spoke. Thank you. Grant didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded and went back to work. They finished the fence as the sun began to set, 2 people rebuilding something that had been broken for far too long. And when Lena smiled, really smiled for the first time since he'd found her, Grant felt something shift in his chest. Hope. Fragile and tentative, but real. For the first time in 8 years, he believed redemption might actually be possible. The next 3 days passed like a held breath. Grant and Lena worked the land together, mending fences, feeding animals, clearing brush from the north field. They didn't talk much, but the silence between them had changed. It wasn't comfortable yet, but it wasn't hostile either. It was something in between, something tentative and fragile. On the 4th morning, Lena came out of her room earlier than usual. I want to learn how to shoot, she said. Grant looked up from his coffee. Now. He didn't argue. He grabbed his rifle and a box of ammunition, and they walked out to the empty field behind the barn. Hold it like this, Grant said, positioning the rifle against her shoulder. Keep your stance wide. Breathe steady. Lena's hands shook. You're nervous, Grant observed. I've never held a gun before. That's all right. Just breathe. She adjusted her grip and aimed at the fence post Grant had marked 50 yards out. Whenever you're ready, he said. She pulled the trigger. The recoil knocked her back a step, and the bullet went wide, kicking up dirt 10 feet to the left of the target. Damn, she muttered. Not bad for a first shot. I missed by a mile. But you didn't drop the gun. That's something. Grant reloaded and handed it back to her. Again. She fired 5 more times. Each shot got closer. On the 7th try, she hit the post. The wood splintered and Lena's eyes went wide. I did it, she whispered. Yeah, you did. She lowered the rifle slowly, staring at the damaged post, like she couldn't quite believe it was real. Again, Grant asked. Again. They spent the next hour like that, loading, aiming, firing. By the end, Lena could hit the post 3 times out of 5. You're a natural, Grant said. I'm motivated. Yeah, I guess you are. They walked back toward the house. Halfway there, Lena stopped. Grant? He turned. If they come back, she said slowly, and it comes down to me or you, I need you to promise me something. What? Don't die for me. Grant's jaw tightened. I can't promise that. Yes, you can. No, I can't. He stepped closer. I spent 8 years living with what I didn't do. I won't spend the rest of my life living with what I didn't do again. That's not. It's my choice, Lena, just like staying here is yours. She stared at him, frustrated, and something else, something softer. You're impossible, she said. So I've been told. She shook her head and started walking again. Grant followed, and neither of them spoke for the rest of the way back. But when they reached the porch, Lena glanced over her shoulder. Thank you, she said quietly, for teaching me. Any time. She almost smiled. I might take you up on that. Yeah. That afternoon, a wagon appeared on the road. Grant was chopping wood when he saw it, a single horse pulling a small cart driven by a woman in a faded blue dress. He set down the axe and walked to the fence line. The woman pulled the wagon to a stop and climbed down. She was maybe 40, with graying hair pulled back in a bun and sharp eyes that missed nothing. You McCade? She asked. Yeah. I'm Dorothy Finch. I live 3 miles east. She gestured vaguely toward the horizon. Heard you got yourself a house guest. Grant's expression didn't change. News travels fast. Always does. Dorothy pulled a cloth-wrapped bundle from the wagon. Brought some bread. Figured you could use it. That's kind of you. Don't mistake kindness for approval, Mr. McCade. I just don't like seeing folks go hungry no matter how stupid they're being. Grant almost smiled. Noted. Dorothy glanced toward the house. She inside? Yeah. She all right? Getting there. Good. Dorothy handed him the bread. Sheriff Dalton came by my place yesterday. Asked if I'd seen anything unusual. I told him no. Grant's chest tightened. Why? Because I remember what happened to the Cartwrights. I remember who was responsible, and I remember being too scared to say anything about it. She met his eyes. I won't make that mistake twice. You could get in trouble for helping us. I'm an old woman with a shotgun and a bad attitude. Let them try. Dorothy climbed back onto the wagon. If you need anything, you know where to find me. Mrs. Finch. Don't thank me yet, Mr. McCade. We'll see if you're still alive in a week. She snapped the reins and the wagon rolled away. Grant stood there holding the bread, feeling something unfamiliar stir in his chest. Hope, maybe. Or just the memory of what it felt like when people still helped each other. Inside, Lena was sitting at the table cleaning the rifle. Who was that? She asked without looking up. Neighbor. Brought bread. Lena's hand stilled. Why? Because she remembers your family, and she's not afraid of Dalton. Lena set down the cleaning cloth. That's dangerous. Yeah. You should tell her to stay away. I tried. She didn't listen. Lena's mouth twitched. I like her already. Grant set the bread on the table and sat down across from her. Dalton's asking questions, going door to door. Looking for me. Yeah. What do we do? Grant leaned back in his chair. We wait, we prepare, and if he comes back, we stand our ground. And if that's not enough, then we fight. Lena studied him for a long moment. You really mean that? Every word. She picked up the rifle again, fingers tracing the barrel. I've been thinking about something. What? Why didn't you just let me go? Back at the auction, you could have walked away, pretended you never saw me. Grant was quiet for a moment. Would you have wanted me to? I don't know, maybe. She looked up. It would have been easier for you. Easier doesn't mean right. No, but it means safer. I'm done playing it safe. Lena's expression softened. Why now? After all these years, why now? Grant rubbed his face. Because I looked at you standing on that block and I saw every choice I didn't make. Every time I ran instead of fought. Every time I told myself it wasn't my problem. He met her eyes. And I couldn't do it again. I couldn't walk away from you twice. Lena's throat worked. You barely know me anymore. I know enough. I'm not that little girl you remember. I know that too. Then what am I to you? The question hung in the air between them, heavy and raw. Grant chose his words carefully. You're someone who deserves a chance. That's all. That's all. That's everything. Lena looked down at her hands. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. I don't know if I can trust you yet. I know. But I want to. That's a start. She nodded slowly, then stood and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. My father used to say that sunsets were God's way of reminding us that endings could be beautiful too, Lena said quietly. I never understood that until now. Grant joined her at the window. What do you understand? That maybe some things have to end before new things can begin. They stood there in silence, watching the light fade. And for the first time since she'd arrived, Lena didn't lock her door that night. 2 more days passed without incident. Grant taught Lena how to reload the rifle faster, how to aim in low light, how to stay calm when her hands wanted to shake. She was a quick learner, focused and determined in a way that reminded him of her father. On the 6th day, she brought it up. Tell me about him, she said. They were sitting on the porch watching the chickens scratch in the dirt. About who? Grant asked. My father. I remember some things, but it's been so long. I want to hear it from someone else. Grant was quiet for a moment. He was a good man, fair, honest, the kind of person who'd give you the shirt off his back if you needed it. That's what everyone says. But what was he really like? He laughed a lot, had this deep, booming laugh that you could hear from across a field. And he loved your mother. God, he loved her. Used to say she was the only reason he hadn't gone crazy yet. Lena's eyes glistened. What about me? What was I like? Curious, always asking questions. You followed me around every time I visited, wanting to know about everything. Grant smiled faintly. You asked me once why horses slept standing up, and I didn't know the answer. You said that was unacceptable, and that I needed to find out. Did you? Yeah. I went to the library in town and looked it up. Next time I saw you, I told you it was because they needed to be ready to run from predators. What did I say? You said that made sense, and then you asked why people couldn't do that too. Lena laughed, a real, genuine laugh that transformed her entire face. That sounds like something I'd ask. It was. Grant's smile faded. You were a good kid, Lena. You deserved better than what happened. We all deserved better. Yeah. They sat in silence for a while, watching the sun move across the sky. Can I ask you something? Lena said. Sure. Why didn't your father stop them? The soldiers. Why didn't he tell them the truth after they burned the house? Grant's hands clenched. Because by then it didn't matter. The land was already changing hands. The deed was signed. Your family was already dead. He paused. And because my father was a coward who cared more about money than people. Do you hate him? Every day. Good, Lena said quietly. You should. That night, Grant woke to the sound of crying. He sat up slowly, listening. It was coming from Lena's room, soft, muffled sobs that she was clearly trying to hide. He got up and walked to her door. His hand hovered over the wood, uncertain. Lena, he called softly. The crying stopped. I'm fine, she said, voice thick. You don't sound fine. I said I'm fine. Grant leaned his forehead against the door. "Can I come in?" Silence. Then, "The door's not locked." He pushed it open slowly. Lena was sitting on the bed, knees pulled to her chest, face wet with tears. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I didn't mean to wake you." "You didn't." Grant stepped inside. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Everything. I don't know." She wiped her face roughly. "I had a dream about my brother, about holding him in the cellar while he—" She couldn't finish. Grant sat down on the edge of the bed, careful to keep distance between them. "How old was he?" 3. He didn't even understand what was happening. He just kept asking for Mama. Her voice broke. "And I couldn't help him. I couldn't save him." "That wasn't your fault." "It feels like it was." "It wasn't. You were a child. There was nothing you could have done." Lena looked at him, eyes red and swollen. "Then why do I still feel like I failed him? Because grief doesn't make sense. Because survivor's guilt is a bastard. Because your heart doesn't understand logic." She laughed bitterly. "That's not helpful." "No. But it's true." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Lena spoke again, quieter now. "Sometimes I forget what he looked like. His face gets fuzzy in my memory, and I hate myself for it." "That's normal." "It doesn't feel normal." "Memory's not perfect, Lena. It fades. That doesn't mean you loved him any less." She wiped her eyes again. "How do you deal with it?" "The guilt." "Honestly, I don't. I just carry it. Every day. Some days it's lighter than others, but it's always there." "Does it ever go away?" "No, but you learn to live with it. You learn to forgive yourself even when you don't think you deserve it." Lena looked down at her hands. "I don't know if I can do that." "You will. Eventually." "How do you know?" "Because you're stronger than you think. And because you're not alone anymore." Her breath hitched, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. Before Grant could react, she leaned forward and rested her head against his shoulder. He froze. "Is this okay?" she whispered. Grant's throat tightened. "Yeah, it's okay." She cried quietly into his shirt while he sat there still and steady, one hand hovering uncertainly before finally settling gently on her back. They stayed like that for a long time, two broken people finding comfort in shared pain. When Lena finally pulled away, her eyes were puffy but calmer. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For not running this time." Grant's chest ached. "I'm done running." "Promise?" "Promise." She lay back down, pulling the blanket up to her chin. "Can you stay just for a little while?" Grant hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, I can stay." He sat on the floor beside the bed, back against the wall. Lena's breathing gradually evened out, and after a few minutes, she was asleep. Grant stayed there until dawn, watching over her like he should have done 8 years ago. And when the first light crept through the window, he finally allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, he was doing something right. Son, the 7th day started quiet. Too quiet. Grant was outside checking the perimeter when he saw them 4 riders this time instead of 3 coming down the road at a steady pace. Sheriff Dalton was in front. Behind him were the 2 deputies from before, plus a 4th man Grant didn't recognize. His stomach dropped. "Lena," he called. She appeared in the doorway, rifle already in hand. "I see them." "Get inside. Lock the door." "No." "Lena." "I said no." She stepped onto the porch beside him. "We do this together. Remember." Grant wanted to argue, but there wasn't time. The riders were already pulling up to the fence line. Dalton dismounted slowly, a smile playing on his lips. "McCade," he drawled. "Didn't think I'd have to come back so soon." "What do you want, Dalton?" "Same thing I wanted last time, the girl." He gestured toward Lena. "She's got questions to answer." About what? About where she's been, who she's been talking to, whether she's planning any trouble. She's been here, with me, not causing anyone any problems. That's not what I heard. Grant's jaw clenched. Then you heard wrong. Dalton took a step forward. I'm going to give you one more chance, Grant. Hand her over and we'll forget this whole thing happened. No. You're making a mistake. That's my choice. The fourth man, the one Grant didn't recognize, spat into the dirt and laughed. You really gonna die for some whore? Grant moved before he could think. He vaulted the fence and grabbed the man by his shirt, slamming him against his horse. Say that again, Grant growled. The man's eyes went wide. I didn't. Say it again. Grant! Lena's voice cut through the tension. Let him go. Grant's hands shook with rage, but he released the man and stepped back. Dalton's smile had vanished. That was stupid, McCade. So's coming back here. Last chance. Give us the girl or we take her by force. Grant turned to face them fully. His hand rested on the pistol at his hip. You can try. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Dalton sighed and drew his gun. Your funeral, he said. Everything happened fast. Dalton fired first. The bullet went wide, hitting the fence post beside Grant's head. Grant drew and fired back, hitting Dalton in the shoulder. The sheriff stumbled backward with a curse. The two deputies went for their weapons. Lena raised the rifle and fired, hitting one in the leg. He went down screaming. The fourth man charged forward on horseback. Grant dove aside, rolled, and came up firing. The shot caught the man in the chest, and he fell from the saddle. The second deputy raised his gun toward Lena. Grant didn't think. He just moved, throwing himself between them as the deputy fired. The bullet hit Grant in the side just below his ribs. Pain exploded through him. His legs gave out. Grant! Lena screamed. She fired the rifle again. The bullet caught the deputy in the shoulder, spinning him around. He dropped his gun and fled, running toward the horses. Dalton was clutching his wounded shoulder, face pale. This isn't over, McCade. Yes, it is, Grant gasped. Get off my land. Dalton looked at him, then at Lena standing there with the rifle, then at his wounded men. Let's go, he muttered. They helped each other onto their horses and rode away, leaving one man dead in the dirt. Grant pressed his hand to his side. Blood seeped through his fingers. Grant. Lena dropped the rifle and ran to him. Oh God, oh God. I'm okay, he lied. You're bleeding. I'm okay. No, you're not. She pressed her hands over his, trying to stop the bleeding. Her hands were shaking. Why did you do that? Why did you? Because I promised I wouldn't let anyone hurt you. You idiot! You absolute idiot! Tears streamed down her face. I told you not to die for me. I'm not dying. You're shot. I've been shot before. I'll be fine. Lena looked at him. Really looked at him, and something in her expression cracked. Don't you dare, she whispered. Don't you dare leave me alone again. Grant reached up with his free hand and touched her face. I'm not going anywhere. Promise me. I promise. She helped him inside, half carrying him to the kitchen. She cleaned the wound with shaking hands, packed it with cloth, and wrapped it tight. It went through, she said, voice trembling. That's good, right? That's good. Yeah, that's good. You need a doctor. I'll be fine. Grant. I'll be fine, he repeated firmly. I just need to rest. Lena looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. She helped him to his room and got him into bed. I'll stay with you, she said. You don't have to. I'm staying. She pulled a chair beside the bed and sat down, one hand wrapped around his. Thank you, Grant whispered, for what you did out there. Don't thank me yet. We still have to survive the night. We will. How do you know? Grant squeezed her hand weakly. Because we're not alone anymore. Lena's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled. No, we're not. She stayed there all night watching over him while he drifted in and out of consciousness. And when morning came, Grant was still breathing. They'd survived. Together. Grant woke to pain and the smell of coffee. His side burned like someone had pressed a hot iron against it. Every breath sent sharp needles through his ribs. He tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Don't move, Lena said. She was sitting in the chair beside his bed. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back messily. She looked exhausted. How long was I out? Grant asked, his voice rough. All night. It's almost noon. You stayed the whole time. Someone had to make sure you didn't die. She stood and poured water from a pitcher into a cup. Drink this. Grant took it gratefully. The water was cool and cleared some of the fog from his head. Did they come back? He asked. No, but I kept watch just in case. Lena sat back down. Mrs. Finch came by this morning, brought more food and some medicine. She said Dalton and his men rode through town last night all shot up and angry. What else did she say? That people are talking. Some are saying you're a hero. Others are saying you're a fool who's going to get himself killed over nothing. And what do you think? Lena's jaw tightened. I think you're both. And I think you scared the hell out of me yesterday. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Just don't do it again. I can't promise that. Then promise me you'll at least try not to die. Grant managed a weak smile. I can promise that. She looked away, blinking rapidly. When she spoke again, her voice was thick. When I saw you get shot, I thought I'd lost you before I even... She trailed off. Before you even what? Before I even figured out what you meant to me. Grant's chest tightened. And have you figured it out? Lena met his eyes. You're not just someone trying to pay back a debt anymore. You're... She struggled for words. You're the first person in 8 years who's made me feel like I matter. You do matter. I know that now. Because of you. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between them. I need to change your bandage, Lena said finally. It's probably soaked through by now. She was right. When she unwrapped the cloth, fresh blood had seeped through the edges. The wound looked angry and raw, but it wasn't infected. Not yet. This is going to hurt, she warned. I know. She cleaned it carefully, her hands steadier than they'd been last night. Grant gritted his teeth and tried not to make any sound, but a hiss escaped when she pressed too hard. Sorry, she muttered. It's fine. No, it's not. Nothing about this is fine. She wrapped fresh cloth around his torso, pulling it tight. You took a bullet for me, Grant. That's not something I can just forget. I don't want you to forget. I want you to understand why I did it. I do understand. That's what scares me. Why? Because now I owe you, and I don't know how to pay that back. Grant caught her hand. You don't owe me anything. Yes, I do. No, you don't. He squeezed gently. What I did yesterday, I did because I wanted to, not because I expected anything in return. Lena looked down at their joined hands. Why are you like this? Like what? Good. Even after everything you've been through, everything you've lost, you're still good. I'm not good, Lena. I'm just trying to be better than I was. Well, you're succeeding. She finished tying off the bandage and helped him lie back down. He was already exhausted again, the brief conversation having drained what little energy he had. Rest, she said. I'll be here if you need anything. Lena. Yeah. Thank you for taking care of me. She brushed hair off his forehead, the gesture so gentle it made his throat tight. Someone has to. He fell asleep with her hand still in his. When he woke again, it was evening. The light through the window had turned golden, and he could hear Lena moving around in the kitchen. His side still hurt, but it was a duller pain, now more manageable. He pushed himself up slowly, testing his limits. Everything protested, but nothing felt like it was tearing apart. That was progress. "You're awake," Lena said from the doorway. "How do you feel?" "Like I got shot." "That's because you did, you idiot." But she was smiling. "Think you can walk?" "Only one way to find out." She helped him stand, and together they made their way to the kitchen. Each step was agony, but Grant refused to show it. He sat down at the table, while Lena brought over a bowl of soup. "Mrs. Finch made this," she said. "Said it would help you heal faster." Grant ate slowly. The soup was good, thick, and hearty, warming him from the inside out. "What happened to the man who died?" he asked between bites. "I buried him this morning, out past the north field." Lena sat across from him. "I know I should feel bad about it, but I don't. He was going to kill you." "You did what you had to do. Does it ever get easier knowing you've taken a life?" "No, but you learn to live with it." "How?" Grant set down his spoon. "You remind yourself why you did it. You remember what you were protecting, and you accept that sometimes in this world, good people have to do hard things." Lena nodded slowly. "I keep thinking about what would have happened if I hadn't learned to shoot. If you'd been out there alone. But you did learn, and I wasn't alone. Because you gave me that choice. To stay or go. To fight or run." She looked up at him. "No one's ever given me a choice before." "You deserve choices, Lena. You deserve a life where you get to decide what happens to you." "I'm starting to believe that." "Good." They finished eating in comfortable silence. When Grant tried to stand to take his bowl to the sink, Lena stopped him. "I've got it. You need to rest." "I've been resting all day." "And you'll rest more. Doctor's orders." "You're not a doctor." "I'm the closest thing you've got, so sit down and shut up." Grant couldn't help but laugh, though it hurt like hell. "Yes, ma'am." Lena washed the dishes while Grant sat and watched. There was something peaceful about it, something almost domestic. Like they were just two normal people living a normal life, instead of two survivors hiding from a corrupt sheriff. "What are you thinking about?" Lena asked without turning around. "How strange this is." "What's strange?" "This, us. A week ago you hated me. Now you're taking care of me like—" He trailed off. "Like what?" "Like you care." Lena dried her hands and turned to face him. "I do care. Is that so hard to believe?" "A little, yeah." "Why?" "Because I'm the son of the man who destroyed your family. Because I left you alone when you needed help most. Because I'm broken and guilty and you jumped in front of a bullet for me," Lena interrupted. "You stood up to armed men knowing you might die. You gave me a place to sleep and food to eat and asked for nothing in return. You taught me how to defend myself. You—" Her voice cracked. "You made me feel human again." Grant's throat tightened. "Lena, don't. Just don't." She wiped her eyes roughly. "I'm not good at this, at feeling things, at trusting people. But I trust you, and that terrifies me." "Why?" "Because everyone I've ever trusted has either died or betrayed me, and I don't know what I'll do if you—" "I won't." "You can't promise that." "Yes, I can." Grant stood slowly, wincing but determined. He crossed to her and took her hands. "I won't betray you. I won't leave you. I won't let anyone hurt you. I promise." Tears spilled down Lena's cheeks. "You almost died yesterday." "But I didn't." "You could have." "But I didn't," he repeated firmly. "I'm still here, and I'm not going anywhere." She looked up at him, searching his face for something, doubt maybe, or deception, but all she found was honesty. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. Do what? Care about someone again. Let someone care about me. Neither do I. But maybe we can figure it out together. Lena let out a shaky laugh. We're a mess, aren't we? The biggest. But we're still here. Yeah, we're still here. She rested her forehead against his chest, careful not to touch his injured side. Grant wrapped his arms around her gently, and they stood there in the fading light, two broken people finding something whole in each other. After a while, Lena pulled back. You need to lie down. You're still healing. I'm fine. You're pale and sweating. You're not fine. Grant wanted to argue, but she was right. The brief walk to the kitchen had exhausted him. Lena helped him back to bed, tucking him in like he was a child. Do you need anything? No, I'm good. I'll be in the next room if you do. Lena. She paused in the doorway. Yeah. Will you? Stay. Just for a little while. She hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, I can stay. She pulled the chair close to the bed and sat down. Grant reached for her hand and she took it without question. Tell me something, he said. Something about you. Something I don't know. Like what? Anything. Lena thought for a moment. I used to want to be a teacher. Before everything happened, I loved books, stories. I wanted to help kids learn to read. You still could. I don't know if I remember how to read anymore. It's been so long. We can fix that. I've got books. We can practice. Her eyes lit up. Really? Really? When I'm healed up, we'll start. I'd like that. They talked quietly until Grant's words started slurring with exhaustion. Lena stayed until he fell asleep, her hand still wrapped in his. The next morning, Grant woke feeling slightly better. The pain in his side had lessened to a dull ache, and his head felt clearer. He got up slowly and made his way to the kitchen. Lena was already awake, sitting at the table with a cup of coffee and her father's pocket watch. She was turning it over in her hands, studying it like she'd never seen it before. Morning, Grant said. She looked up, startled. You shouldn't be out of bed. I'm feeling better. You got shot 2 days ago. Yeah, and I'm still alive. That's worth celebrating. He poured himself coffee and sat across from her. What are you looking at? Lena held up the watch. I was thinking about what to do with this. What do you mean? It's the only thing I have left of my father, the only physical thing anyway, and I realized. I've been holding on to it so tight, afraid that if I let it go, I'd lose him completely. That's understandable. But holding on to it hasn't brought him back. It hasn't changed what happened. It's just kept me stuck. Grant studied her carefully. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe it's time to let go. Not of the memory, but of the pain. The anger, the grief that's been eating me alive for 8 years. She set the watch on the table. I want to bury it. Where? Here. On your land. Make it a place I can visit, but not a place I'm trapped in. Grant's chest tightened. You sure? No, but I think it's what I need to do. Then we'll do it. Together. When I'm strong enough to help you dig. Lena smiled softly. Thank you. They spent the rest of the morning quietly. Grant rested while Lena worked around the house, and by afternoon he felt strong enough to sit on the porch. That's when they saw the rider coming. Grant tensed hand moving instinctively toward his gun, but Lena touched his arm. Wait, that's Mrs. Finch. She was right. Dorothy Finch rode up on her old mare, face grim. You two need to hear this, she said without preamble. Sheriff Dalton's calling for backup. Word is he's bringing in men from the next county. Says you're dangerous criminals who need to be dealt with. Grant's stomach sank. When? Day after tomorrow from what I heard. Maybe sooner. Dorothy dismounted. You need to leave. Both of you. Get as far from here as you can. I'm not running, Grant said. Don't be stupid, boy. You can't fight off that many men. Maybe not. But this is my land. And I'm not giving it up. Then you're going to die on it. Better than dying a coward. Dorothy looked at Lena. Talk some sense into him. Lena was quiet for a long moment. Then she shook her head. I'm staying too. You're both insane. Probably, Lena agreed. But we're staying. Dorothy studied them both, then sighed heavily. Fine, then I'm staying too. Mrs. Finch, don't argue with me, McCade. I didn't survive 40 years in this godforsaken place to run now. She tied her horse to the fence. You're going to need all the help you can get. Grant wanted to protest, but he could see it would be useless. Dorothy Finch had made up her mind. Thank you, he said instead. Don't thank me yet. We'll see if we're still alive in 2 days. That evening, they prepared. Grant showed Lena and Dorothy how to fortify the windows, where to position themselves for the best angles, how to reload quickly under pressure. His side screamed with every movement, but he pushed through it. You're going to tear your stitches, Lena warned. Then you'll sew me back up. Grant, we don't have time for me to be careful, Lena. If Dalton's bringing reinforcements, we need to be ready. She wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. They worked until dark, then collapsed around the kitchen table. I've got a question, Dorothy said. What's the endgame here? Let's say we survive the fight. What then? Dalton's not going to stop. He'll just keep coming back. Grant had been thinking about the same thing. Then we take the fight to him. We go to the territorial marshal. Tell him what Dalton's been doing. And you think he'll believe us? I think we have to try. Dorothy nodded slowly. Fair enough. But first we have to survive. Yeah. First we survive. Lena reached across the table and took Grant's hand. We will. Together. Together, he agreed. That night none of them slept much. Grant dozed fitfully, jerking awake at every sound. Lena paced the house, checking and rechecking the guns. Dorothy sat on the porch, shotgun across her lap, watching the road. Morning came too fast and too slow at the same time. They ate breakfast in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Grant's side was throbbing, but he didn't mention it. No point worrying anyone else. I need to tell you something, Lena said suddenly. Grant looked up. What? If this goes wrong, if I don't make it? Don't talk like that. I need to say it. She took a breath. If I don't make it, I want you to know that these past few days have been the happiest I've been in 8 years. You gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. What's that? Hope. And I'm grateful for it. Grant's throat tightened. Nothing's going to happen to you. You can't promise that. I can try. She smiled sadly. I know. And that's enough. Dorothy cleared her throat. Hate to interrupt this touching moment, but we've got riders coming. They moved fast. Grant and Lena took positions at opposite windows. Dorothy stationed herself by the door. Through the window, Grant counted 8 men. Dalton was in front, arm in a sling, face twisted with rage. McCade, he shouted. This is your last chance. Send the girl out and we'll let you live. Grant stepped onto the porch. You know I'm not doing that. Then you're a dead man. Maybe. But I'm not dying alone. Dalton raised his good arm. Take them. The men charged. Grant fired first, dropping one man from his horse. Lena's rifle cracked, and another went down. Dorothy's shotgun boomed, taking out a third. But there were still 5 left, and they were spreading out looking for cover. They're flanking, Dorothy shouted. Grant saw it too, 2 men circling around toward the barn. If they got behind the house, they'd be trapped. I'm going out, he yelled. Grant, no, Lena screamed. But he was already moving, vaulting off the porch and running toward the barn, despite the fire in his side. He made it halfway before one of the men saw him and fired. The bullet whizzed past his ear. Grant dove behind a water trough and came up shooting. His first shot missed. His second caught the man in the chest. The 4th man was almost to the barn. Grant stood and ran, ignoring the pain. ignoring everything except the need to stop him. They collided near the barn door. The man was bigger, heavier, and Grant's wound slowed him down. They grappled, trading blows. Grant took a fist to the jaw that made his vision swim. Then he heard the crack of a rifle. The man jerked and fell, blood blooming on his back. Lena stood on the porch, rifle smoking, face pale but determined. Grant nodded his thanks and turned back to the house. Dalton and the last deputy were still alive, pinned down behind their horses. Dalton was shouting, trying to rally his man, but you could hear the desperation in his voice. "Give it up, Dalton," Grant yelled. "It's over. Like hell it is." The deputy broke first. He stood and ran for his horse. Dorothy's shotgun caught him mid-stride and he went down hard. Dalton was alone now. He looked around at his dead men, at the 3 people still standing, and Grant saw the moment he realized he'd lost. "This isn't over, McCade," he snarled. "Yeah, it is." Dalton pulled a knife and charged. Grant didn't have time to draw. He grabbed Dalton's wrist as the blade came down, fighting to keep it away from his throat. They struggled, and Grant felt his wound tearing, felt warm blood soaking through his shirt. Then Lena was there, rifle butt swinging, catching Dalton across the temple. The sheriff crumpled. Grant fell to his knees, pressing his hand to his side. Blood poured between his fingers. "Grant?" Lena dropped beside him. "Oh God, your wound." "I'm okay." "You're bleeding again." "I'll be fine." "Is he?" "Unconscious?" "Alive." Lena tore fabric from her dress and pressed it to his side. "Dorothy, I need help." The older woman was already coming, moving fast for someone her age. Together they got Grant inside and onto the table. "This is bad," Dorothy muttered, examining the wound. "Stitches are torn. Might be bleeding internally." "Fix it," Lena said, her voice shaking. "I'll try." Grant gritted his teeth as Dorothy went to work. The pain was unbelievable, worse than the original wound. He could feel himself fading. "Stay with me," Lena begged, gripping his hand. "Don't you dare die on me now. Not after everything. Please, Grant, please." "Not planning on it," he managed. She laughed through her tears. "You better not." Dorothy worked fast, restitching the wound with steady hands. When she finished, she sat back, wiping sweat from her forehead. "That's the best I can do. Rest of it's up to him." Lena looked at Grant, eyes red and afraid. "You hear that? You have to fight. You have to stay." "I will," he whispered. "Promise." She kissed his forehead, his cheeks, his hands. "I need you. Do you understand? I need you." Grant squeezed her hand weakly. "I know. And I'm not going anywhere." He closed his eyes, exhausted beyond measure. But he was smiling, because for the first time in 8 years, he had something worth fighting for. And he'd be damned if he was going to lose it now. Grant drifted in and out of consciousness for 2 days. Sometimes he was aware of Lena's hand in his, her voice soft and steady, as she talked to him about nothing and everything. Sometimes he heard Dorothy moving around the house, the clink of dishes, the creak of floorboards. And sometimes he heard nothing at all, just the dark pulling him down into places he didn't want to go. On the 3rd morning he woke with a clear head. The pain in his side was still there, but it had dulled to something manageable. He could breathe without feeling like his ribs were on fire. That was progress. Lena was asleep in the chair beside his bed, her head resting on her arms on the mattress. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair tangled, clothes wrinkled. She'd clearly been there all night. Grant reached out slowly and touched her hair. She woke instantly, jerking upright. "Grant?" "Hey!" Her eyes filled with tears. "You're awake. You're really awake." "Yeah. How long was I out?" 2 days. We thought..." Her voice broke. "We thought you weren't going to make it." "Takes more than that to kill me." She laughed and cried at the same time, grabbing his hand and pressing it to her cheek. "Don't ever do that again. Do you hear me? Don't ever scare me like that again." I'll try my best. That's not good enough. It's all I've got. She kissed his palm, his wrist, his knuckles. You're an idiot. So you keep telling me. Because it's true. Grant smiled weakly. Where's Dorothy? Out burying the bodies. She's been handling everything while I... Lena trailed off, looking down. While I stayed here with you. Thank you. Don't thank me. I couldn't leave you. I tried once, thought maybe I should help Dorothy, but I couldn't make myself walk away. She met his eyes. I was too afraid you'd slip away while I wasn't looking. Grant's chest tightened. I'm not going anywhere, Lena. You keep saying that. Because I mean it. She studied his face for a long moment, searching for something. When you were unconscious, you talked sometimes. Did you know that? No. What did I say? Mostly nonsense. Names I didn't recognize. Places you've been. She hesitated. But once you said my name, you said, I'm sorry, Lena. I'm so sorry. Grant closed his eyes. I am sorry. For everything. I know. And I've been thinking about that. About forgiveness and what it means. She took a breath. I forgive you, Grant. For leaving me 8 years ago. For not being there when I needed you. For all of it. His eyes snapped open. What? I forgive you. I should have said it before, but I was too scared. Too angry. But sitting here watching you fight to stay alive, I realized something. Her voice grew stronger. You've spent 8 years punishing yourself for something you couldn't control. And I've spent 8 years letting that night define me. But we're both still here. Still breathing. Still fighting. And that has to mean something. It means we're stubborn. She smiled through her tears. It means we deserve a second chance. Both of us. Grant pulled her hand to his chest right over his heart. I don't deserve you. Probably not. But you're stuck with me anyway. I can live with that. Good. Because I'm not going anywhere either. They stayed like that for a while, just holding each other's hands and breathing together. It wasn't much, but it was everything. Finally, Dorothy came in, covered in dirt and sweat. Well, look who decided to join the living, she said. About damn time. Sorry to worry you, Grant said. Don't apologize to me. Apologize to this girl who hasn't slept in 3 days. Dorothy washed her hands in the basin. We need to talk about what happens next. What do you mean? Dalton's tied up in the barn. Been unconscious most of the time, but he's starting to come around. We need to decide what to do with him. Grant tried to sit up and Lena immediately pushed him back down. You're not getting up yet. I need to. You need to rest. Dorothy and I can handle this. She's right, Dorothy said. You've done your part. Let us do ours. Grant wanted to argue, but the truth was he could barely keep his eyes open. What are you going to do with him? Take him to the territorial marshal. Let the law handle it for once. Dorothy's expression hardened. But first we need to get statements, evidence, proof of what he's done. I can testify, Lena said. About the illegal auction. About him trying to kill us. That'll help. But we need more. We need other people willing to speak up. Good luck with that. Everyone in this county's too scared of Dalton. Maybe, but maybe seeing him tied up and helpless will change some minds. Dorothy looked at Grant. You rest. We'll handle this. After she left, Lena helped Grant drink some water and eat a little broth. He managed a few spoonfuls before exhaustion pulled him back under. When he woke again, it was evening. Lena was back in the chair, but this time she was reading or trying to. She held one of Grant's books in her lap, lips moving silently as she worked through the words. What are you reading? Grant asked. She jumped, nearly dropping the book. You're awake again. Seems to be a habit. What's the book? She held it up sheepishly. I don't know. I can't read most of the words, but I'm trying. Let me see. She brought the book over a collection of poetry. Grant recognized it as one his mother had given him years ago. "This one's tricky," he said. "How about we start with something easier? You should be resting, not teaching." "I can do both." He patted the edge of the bed. "Sit." Lena hesitated, then sat carefully, making sure not to jostle his injury. Grant opened the book to a simpler poem and pointed to the first line. "Sound it out," he said. "Take your time." She bent over the page, squinting at the words. "The sun." "Good. Keep going." "The sun rises every day." "Perfect." Her face lit up. "I did it. You did it." She read the line again, faster this time, more confident. Then she looked at him with something like wonder. "I forgot how good this feels. Reading, learning. We'll practice every day. Build your skills back up. But you need to heal first. I can heal and teach. I'm talented like that." She laughed and shook her head. "You're impossible." "So I've been told." They spent the next hour like that, Lena reading slowly, Grant correcting gently, both of them finding peace in something simple and normal. It felt like the world outside didn't exist, like there was no Dalton in the barn, no bodies buried in the field, no war or loss or pain. Just two people, and a book, and the quiet comfort of learning together. Eventually, Grant's eyes started to close again. Lena marked the page and set the book aside. "Sleep," she said softly. "I'll be here when you wake up. Promise?" "Promise." He drifted off with her hand in his, feeling safer than he had in years. The next morning, Grant felt strong enough to sit up without help. His side was still tender, but the sharp pain had faded to a dull ache. Dorothy checked his stitches and declared them holding. "You're lucky," she said. "Another inch to the left and you'd be dead." "I've always been lucky." "Bull. You've been stupid and stubborn, and somehow that's kept you alive." But she was smiling. "Think you can walk? Only one way to find out." With Lena's help, he made it to the kitchen and sat at the table. The effort left him winded, but it felt good to be upright again. "Dalton's awake," Dorothy said, pouring coffee. "And he's talking, or rather cursing and threatening. But he knows he's done." "Has anyone come looking for him?" Grant asked. "Not yet, but they will eventually. His men had family's friends. Someone's going to notice they're missing." "Then we need to move fast. Get him to the marshal before people start asking questions." "Agreed. I'm planning to leave tomorrow. Take him to Fort Davis, about 3 days' ride from here." "I'm going with you," Grant said. Both women spoke at once. "No, you're not." "Absolutely not." Grant held up his hand. "Listen, you can barely walk to the kitchen," Lena said. "How are you going to ride for 3 days?" "I'll manage." "You'll tear your stitches and bleed to death." "She's right," Dorothy added. "You're staying here." "And what if more of Dalton's men come? What if someone decides to finish what he started? Then we'll deal with it," Lena said firmly. "But you're not going anywhere until you're healed." Grant wanted to argue, but he could see it was useless. They'd made up their minds. "Fine," he said, "but you take the rifle, and you don't take any chances." Dorothy nodded. "I've been taking care of myself for 40 years, boy. I think I can manage a few more days." "And I'll stay here?" Lena said. "Keep watch. Make sure Grant doesn't do anything stupid." "I don't do stupid things." Both women looked at him. "All right, I don't do stupid things often." "Better," Lena said. They spent the rest of the day preparing. Dorothy gathered supplies for the journey, while Lena showed Grant the defensive positions she and Dorothy had set up around the house. She'd thought of everything: sightlines, cover points, escape routes. It was impressive. "You've been thinking about this a lot," Grant observed. "I've had time and motivation." She checked the rifle's action. "I'm not letting anyone take this place from us. Us? She met his eyes. This is my home too now, if you'll have me. Grant's throat tightened. Always. That evening, Dorothy went to check on Dalton one last time before they bedded down. She came back shaking her head. He's still running his mouth. Swears he'll see us all hang. Let him talk, Grant said. Words don't mean much when you're tied up in a barn. True enough. Dorothy sat at the table. I want to ask you two something. What happens after this? After Dalton's dealt with and the dust settles? Grant and Lena exchanged glances. I don't know, Grant admitted. Haven't thought that far ahead. Well, you should, because this ranch is going to need work. Crops need planting. Fences need finishing. Animals need tending. And you, she pointed at Grant, are going to need help until you're fully healed. What are you suggesting? Lena asked. I'm suggesting that maybe this doesn't have to be a one-person operation anymore. Maybe it could be something bigger, better. Dorothy's eyes twinkled. I'm getting too old to run my place alone anyway. Been thinking about selling. But if I had a reason to stay close... Grant felt warmth spread through his chest. You'd be welcome here, both of you, for as long as you want. We'd pay our way, Dorothy said. I'm not looking for charity. Neither am I, Lena added quickly. Then we're agreed. We work together, build something worth keeping. Grant looked between them. Partners. Dorothy stood and extended her hand. Partners. Lena did the same. Partners. They shook on it, and something shifted in the air. Something hopeful and solid. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were building. That night, Grant lay in bed listening to the sounds of the house. Dorothy snoring softly in the spare room. Lena moving quietly in the kitchen cleaning up after dinner. The wind whistling through the eaves. Normal sounds. Peaceful sounds. For the first time in 8 years, Grant allowed himself to imagine a future. He saw the ranch rebuilt fences, straight fields planted barn painted. He saw Dorothy on the porch, shotgun across her lap, watching the road. He saw Lena reading on the steps, lips moving silently as she worked through another book. He saw a life worth living. The door opened quietly, and Lena slipped inside. Thought you might be asleep, she whispered. Not yet. Can't seem to settle. Want some company? Always. She sat in the chair, but this time she pulled it closer. Close enough that she could rest her hand on the bed beside him. Grant laced his fingers through hers. You scared about tomorrow? A little. What if something goes wrong? What if Dalton escapes, or... Dorothy knows what she's doing, and you'll be here keeping this place safe. I know, but I don't like the idea of being separated. Not after... She trailed off. Not after almost losing me. Yeah. Grant squeezed her hand. I'm not going anywhere, Lena. I keep telling you that. I know, but my brain doesn't always listen to logic. She looked down at their joined hands. I lost everyone once, my whole family gone in one night, and I've been terrified of losing people ever since. Even people I barely know. Even people I'm not sure I want to care about. And now I'm terrified of losing you. And that's worse somehow because I know what you mean to me. I know what it would cost. Grant pulled her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles. You're not going to lose me, I promise. You can't promise that. Maybe not, but I can try my damnedest to keep it. She climbed onto the bed beside him, careful not to jostle his injury, and rested her head on his shoulder. He wrapped his good arm around her. Is this okay? She asked. More than okay. They lay there in the dark, breathing together, hearts beating in sync. Grant? Yeah. When this is all over, when Dalton's dealt with and things settle down, what do you want? He thought about it for a moment. Peace, a normal life. Maybe plant some crops, raise some animals, read books on the porch, grow old without always looking over my shoulder. That sounds nice. What about you? What do you want? Lena was quiet for so long he thought she'd fallen asleep. Then she spoke, voice barely a whisper. I want to stop being afraid. I want to wake up without wondering if today's the day everything gets taken away again. I want to trust that good things can last. She paused. And I want to figure out what it means to be Lena again. Not the girl who survived the fire. Not the woman who got sold at auction. Just Lena. I'd like to meet her. This Lena. Me too. She turned her face into his shoulder. Will you help me find her? Every day, for as long as you'll let me. That might be a long time. Good. I'm planning on sticking around a long time anyway. She smiled against his shirt. Okay then. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, finding comfort in closeness and the promise of tomorrow. Morning came too fast. Dorothy was up before dawn, packing supplies and preparing the wagon. Grant forced himself out of bed to say goodbye, even though every muscle protested. You take care of yourself, Dorothy said, checking her shotgun one last time. And take care of that girl. She's tougher than she looks, but she's been through hell. I know. Good. Then don't screw it up. She climbed onto the wagon where Dalton lay bound and gagged in the back. I'll be back in a week, maybe less. Hold down the fort till then. We will. Dorothy snapped the reins and the wagon rolled away. Grant and Lena stood on the porch watching until it disappeared over the horizon. Well, Lena said, it's just us now. Yeah. Nervous. A little. She terrified. Grant took her hand. We'll be fine. You keep saying that. Because I believe it. She looked up at him, eyes searching his face. Then she stood on her toes and kissed his cheek. What was that for? He asked, surprised. For being you. For not giving up. For making me believe things can be better. She blushed. And because I've been wanting to do that for days. Grant's heart hammered against his ribs. Lena. Don't say anything. Not yet. She stepped back. We should go inside. You need to rest and I need to keep watch. But before she could turn away, Grant caught her hand. Wait. What? He pulled her back gently, carefully, and kissed her forehead. Thank you. For what? For staying, for fighting, for giving me a reason to keep going. Her eyes filled with tears. Grant, I'm not done. He cupped her face in his hands. I know we're both broken. I know we're both carrying more pain than anyone should have to carry. But I also know that for the first time in 8 years, I feel like I'm alive again. And that's because of you. You saved me first. Maybe, but you saved me right back. She kissed him, then soft and tentative and full of questions neither of them had answers to yet. When they pulled apart, both of them were shaking. I don't know how to do this, Lena whispered. Neither do I. But I want to try. Me too. They stood there on the porch, foreheads pressed together, breathing each other's air. And for the first time in both their lives, the future didn't feel like something to fear. It felt like something to build. The rest of the day passed quietly. Grant rested while Lena kept watch, and by evening they were both restless with nervous energy. Tell me a story, Lena said. They were sitting at the table eating dinner. What kind of story? Any kind. Something that doesn't involve death or loss or pain. Grant thought for a moment. All right. When I was 7, my mother took me to the ocean. It was the first time I'd ever seen it, and I couldn't believe how big it was, how endless. I spent the whole day running in and out of the waves, collecting shells, building castles in the sand. That sounds beautiful. It was. And that night we sat on the beach and watched the sun set over the water, and my mother said something I never forgot. What? She said that no matter how bad things got, no matter how dark life became, the ocean would always be there. The waves would always roll in, the sun would always set. And that constancy that promised that some things never change was the closest thing to hope she'd ever found. Lena's eyes glistened. Your mother sounds wise. She was. I wish you could have met her. I wish I could have too. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, both lost in memories of people they'd loved and lost. Grant, Lena said eventually. Yeah. Do you think we'll make it through all of this? He reached across the table and took her hand. I think we already have. Everything else is just details. She smiled. I like that answer. Good. Because it's the only one I've got. That night, Lena didn't sleep in her room. She stayed with Grant curled up beside him, and they talked until the early hours about everything and nothing. They talked about their childhoods, their dreams, the people they'd been before the world broke them. And slowly, piece by piece, they started to put themselves back together. Not into who they'd been before, that was impossible, but into who they could be now. Together. When sleep finally claimed them, they were holding each other tight, two survivors who'd found something worth fighting for, each other, and the promise of a tomorrow they'd build together. The next 5 days stretched like an eternity. Grant healed slowly, each day, bringing back a little more strength, a little more mobility. Lena stayed close, watching the road, checking the perimeter, teaching herself to read with the books Grant had given her. They fell into a rhythm comfortable, but charged with something unspoken, something neither of them was quite ready to name yet. On the 6th morning, Lena was practicing her reading on the porch when she saw the dust cloud on the horizon. Grant, she called. He came out immediately, hand instinctively going to the gun at his hip. His side still ached, but he could move without feeling like he'd tear in half. Dorothy, he asked. I think so. Only one wagon. They waited tense until the shape became clear. Dorothy drove the wagon with her usual no-nonsense efficiency, and sitting beside her unbound, now looking tired but determined, was a man in a marshal's uniform. Grant's shoulders relaxed. She did it. She actually did it. The wagon pulled up to the fence, and Dorothy climbed down with a satisfied grin. Miss me? She asked. Every second, Grant said. Who's your friend? The marshal stepped down, a tall man with graying hair and sharp eyes. Marshal Thomas Webb. Mrs. Finch tells quite a story about what happened here. It's all true, Grant said. That's what I'm here to verify. Webb looked around the property, taking in the repaired fences, the bullet holes in the porch, the fresh graves in the distance. Mind if we talk inside? They gathered around the kitchen table, Grant, Lena, Dorothy, and the marshal. Webb pulled out a notebook and started asking questions. He was thorough and fair, listening to every detail without judgment. Sheriff Dalton's been taken into custody, Webb said when they finished. Along with the auctioneer who ran that illegal sale. We're building a case against them both. What about the people who died here? Lena asked quietly. Dalton's men. Self-defense, clear as day from what I've seen and heard. No charges will be filed against any of you. Webb closed his notebook. But I need you all to understand something. This is going to get attention. People are going to talk. Some will call you heroes. Others will call you troublemakers. Either way, your lives won't be quiet for a while. We can handle it, Grant said. Webb studied him for a moment, then nodded. I believe you can. Mrs. Finch also mentioned something about the Cartwright family, about what really happened 8 years ago. Lena stiffened. Grant reached under the table and took her hand. What about it? She asked. I want to reopen that case. Look into who was really responsible. Make sure justice is served, even if it's late. Grant's father was involved, Lena said, voice steady. But he's dead now. Has been for 2 years. I know, but there were others, and if they're still alive, they need to answer for what they did. Webb looked at Lena directly. Would you be willing to testify? She glanced at Grant. He squeezed her hand but said nothing. This had to be her choice. Yes, Lena said finally. "I'll testify. They took everything from me. They should answer for it." "Good. I'll be in touch when we're ready to proceed." Webb stood and shook hands with each of them. "You're brave people, all of you. Don't let anyone tell you different." After he left, Dorothy made coffee, and they sat in silence for a while, processing everything. "It's really over," Lena said finally. "Dalton's in custody. The truth about my family might finally come out. It's really over." "The bad part is," Grant said, "but the rest is just beginning." Dorothy raised her coffee cup. "To new beginnings, then. And to stubborn fools who don't know when to quit." They clinked their cups together, and for the first time in weeks, the weight on Grant's chest felt lighter. The next few days brought visitors' neighbors who'd heard what happened and wanted to see for themselves. Some came with food and well wishes. Others came with questions and barely concealed suspicion. But most came with something Grant hadn't expected: respect. "You stood up to Dalton," one old farmer said, shaking Grant's hand. "That takes guts. Real guts." "We all stood up to him," Grant corrected, gesturing to Lena and Dorothy. "I just happened to be the one who got shot." The farmer chuckled. "Well, either way, you got the whole county talking. People are saying maybe things can be different now. Maybe we don't have to be afraid anymore." After he left, Lena turned to Grant. "Did you hear that? We changed something. We actually changed something. We did what needed doing. That's all." "No, it's more than that." She grabbed his hands. "Don't you see, we proved that people can fight back, that corruption doesn't have to win, that—" Grant pulled her into a hug, cutting off her words. She melted against him, and they stood there in the middle of the kitchen, holding each other tight. "I'm proud of you," he whispered into her hair. "I'm proud of us." "Yeah, us." That evening, Lena brought out her father's pocket watch. "I'm ready," she said. Grant knew what she meant. "You sure?" "I'm sure. Will you help me?" They walked to the hill behind the house, the one that overlooked the valley. Grant brought a shovel, even though his side protested, and dug a small hole while Lena held the watch. "My father used to say that the measure of a man wasn't in what he owned, but in what he gave away," Lena said softly. "I never understood that until now. He gave me everything: his love, his time, his wisdom. And even though it was all taken away, those gifts are still inside me. They shaped who I am." She knelt beside the hole and placed the watch inside carefully. "I'm letting go of the anger now, Papa. I'm letting go of the pain, not because I'm forgetting you, but because I know you'd want me to be happy. You'd want me to live." Tears streamed down her face. "I love you. I'll always love you. But it's time for me to build something new now." Grant covered the watch with earth while Lena stood and wiped her eyes. When he finished, they both stood in silence, the wind soft around them. "Thank you," Lena said, "for being here. Always." They walked back to the house hand in hand, and Lena didn't look back once. 2 weeks after Dorothy returned, Grant was finally strong enough to work the land properly again. He and Lena spent their days mending fences, planting seeds, repairing the barn. Dorothy helped where she could, but mostly she sat on the porch with her shotgun keeping watch and telling stories about the old days. One afternoon, while they were working on the north fence, Lena stopped and looked at Grant. "I need to tell you something," she said. He set down his hammer. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. That's the thing." She took a breath. "For the first time in 8 years, nothing's wrong. I'm not afraid. I'm not angry. I'm not waiting for the next terrible thing to happen. I'm just here, living. And it's because of you." Grant shook his head. "It's because of you. You're the one who chose to stay. You're the one who fought. You're the one who—" She kissed him, cutting off his words. It was different from that first tentative kiss on the porch, deeper, surer, full of promise. When they pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. I love you, Lena said. I know it's fast and probably stupid, but I don't care. I love you, Grant McCade. Grant's throat tightened. I love you too. I think I have since I saw you standing on that auction block, even though I didn't know it yet. That's definitely stupid. Yeah, but it's true. She laughed and cried at the same time, and Grant pulled her close, holding her like she was the most precious thing in the world. Because she was. They stood there in the field, wrapped around each other, while the sun moved across the sky and the world kept turning. And for the first time in both their lives, the future looked bright. A month later, Marshal Webb returned with news. 3 men had been arrested in connection with the Cartwright murders, all of them former Confederate soldiers who'd been bribed by Grant's father to burn the farm. They'd be standing trial in the territorial court. Your testimony will be crucial, Webb told Lena. But I want you to know this won't be easy. You'll have to relive that night, answer hard questions, face the men who killed your family. Lena's hand trembled, but her voice was steady. I can do it. You don't have to, Grant said quickly. If it's too much, I have to. For my father, for my mother, for my little brother. She looked at Webb. When's the trial? 2 months. I'll come get you when it's time. After Webb left, Grant found Lena sitting on the porch steps, staring at nothing. You okay? He asked. I don't know. I thought I'd be scared, but I'm not. I'm just tired. Tired of carrying this weight. Tired of letting what they did define my life. Grant sat beside her. Then let's make sure this is the end of it. You testify, they go to jail, and we move on. Together. Together, she repeated. I like the sound of that. Good. Because I'm planning on saying it a lot. She rested her head on his shoulder. Grant? Yeah. After the trial, will you marry me? Grant's heart stopped. What? I know it's supposed to be the man who asks, but I don't care about tradition. I care about you. I care about building a life together, and I don't want to wait anymore. She lifted her head to look at him. So will you marry me? Grant stared at her. This woman who'd survived hell and come out stronger. This woman who'd chosen to love him despite everything. This woman who'd become his entire world in just a few short months. Yes, he said. God, yes. She threw her arms around his neck, laughing and crying, and Grant held her tight, feeling like the luckiest man alive. Dorothy heard the commotion and came out to investigate. What's all this noise about? We're getting married, Lena announced. Dorothy's face broke into a rare, genuine smile. Well, it's about damn time. You two have been dancing around each other for weeks. We have not, Grant protested. Boy, please, even the chickens could tell you were in love. Dorothy crossed her arms. When's the wedding? After the trial, Lena said. I want to close that chapter first, then start the new one right. Smart girl, I taught you well. They spent the evening talking about where they'd hold the ceremony, who they'd invite, what Lena would wear. It was normal and mundane and absolutely perfect. That night as they lay in bed together, Lena traced patterns on Grant's chest. Are you scared? She asked. About getting married. Terrified. Good. Me too. But I'm more scared of losing you. So I'll take terrified and married over alone any day. She kissed his jaw. I'm not going anywhere. Promise. Promise. You're stuck with me now, Grant McCade. For better or worse. Mostly better, I hope. We'll see. She smiled against his skin. But I'm willing to find out. The 2 months before the trial passed in a blur of work and preparation. The ranch began to look like something real: fences, straight fields, planted animals, healthy and thriving. Dorothy moved her things over permanently, converting the spare room into her own space. And Grant and Lena fell deeper in love with each passing day. When Marshal Webb came to collect them for the trial, Lena was ready. She dressed in a simple blue dress that Dorothy had altered for her, pulled her hair back and stood tall. "You look beautiful," Grant said. "I look terrified." "That too, but mostly beautiful." The trial lasted 3 days. Lena testified on the second day, and Grant sat in the courtroom watching as she told her story with quiet strength. She didn't break down, didn't falter. She looked each of those men in the eye and told them exactly what they'd taken from her. The jury deliberated for 2 hours and came back with guilty verdicts for all 3 men. When the judge read the sentences 15 years each, Lena closed her eyes and exhaled slowly. Grant took her hand and she squeezed so hard his fingers went numb. Outside the courthouse, she finally let herself cry. Grant held her while she sobbed into his chest, 8 years of grief and rage and relief pouring out all at once. "It's over," she kept saying. "It's really over." "It's over," Grant agreed. "And now we get to live." They rode back to the ranch the next day, and when they crested the hill and saw the house waiting for them, Lena smiled. "Home?" she said. "We're going home." "Yeah, we are." 3 weeks later, they stood in front of the house, the one they'd defended together, the one they'd rebuilt together, the one that held all their hopes for the future, and said their vows. Dorothy officiated reading from a worn Bible she'd brought from her own place. A handful of neighbors attended people who'd become friends, people who believed in second chances and new beginnings. "Do you, Grant McCade, take Lena Cartwright to be your lawfully wedded wife?" Dorothy asked. "I do." "And do you, Lena Cartwright, take Grant McCade to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Lena looked at Grant, this man who'd saved her, who'd fought for her, who'd given her back her life, and smiled. "I do. Then by the power vested in me by being old and ornery, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Grant, you may kiss your bride, and make it quick, I'm hungry." Everyone laughed, but Grant took his time. He cupped Lena's face in his hands and kissed her like she was air, and he'd been drowning like she was light, and he'd been lost in darkness like she was everything he'd ever needed and finally found. When they pulled apart, Lena was crying happy tears. "Hello, Mrs. McCade?" Grant said softly. "Hello, Mr. McCade," she replied. They celebrated with food and music and laughter, and when the sun began to set, Grant and Lena walked to the hill where they'd buried her father's watch. "He would have liked you," Lena said. "My father, he would have liked what we've built here." "I hope so. I know so." She turned to face him. "You know what the best part is." "What?" "We get to keep building, every day, for the rest of our lives." Grant pulled her close. "That sounds perfect." They stood there as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and reds and purples. And Lena remembered what her father had said about sunsets, that endings could be beautiful too. But this wasn't an ending, she realized. This was a beginning built on trust and forgiveness and love. A beginning that had cost them both everything and given them back even more. A beginning that proved redemption was real, that second chances existed, that broken people could heal if they found the right person to help them. "What are you thinking about?" Grant asked. "That I was wrong," Lena said. "Back when you bought me at that auction, I thought freedom was something that could be given or taken away. But it's not. Freedom is something you build one choice at a time, one day at a time, one act of courage at a time. And have you built it? Your freedom?" She looked up at him. This man who'd become her partner, her protector, her home. "We built it, together, and we'll keep building it, for the rest of our lives." Grant kissed her forehead. "I like that plan." "Good, because you're stuck with it, and with me. Best thing that ever happened to me." They walked back to the house hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next. Because they weren't alone anymore. They had each other. They had Dorothy. They had neighbors who'd become family, and they had a future worth fighting for. The ranch lights glowed warm and welcoming as they approached. Inside, Dorothy had already started cleaning up from the celebration, humming an old song while she worked. When she saw them come in, she smiled. "There's the happy couple. Thought you two had run off already." "Not yet," Grant said. "Still too much work to do around here." "Work can wait. Tonight's for celebrating." Dorothy poured them each a glass of whiskey. "A toast. To new beginnings, stubborn hearts, and the best damn decision you idiots ever made." They clinked glasses and drank the whiskey burning warm down their throats. Later that night, after Dorothy had gone to bed, Grant and Lena sat on the porch watching the stars. "Do you ever think about how different things could have been?" Lena asked. "If you hadn't gone to that auction? If you'd walked away?" "Every day. And every day I thank God I didn't." "Me too." She leaned against him. "You know what people in town are saying about us?" "What?" "That the rancher bought himself a wife at auction. That this whole thing is just transactional." Grant felt anger flare in his chest, but Lena laughed softly. "Let them talk. We know the truth. Which is, you didn't buy me. You paid for my freedom. And the rest, the love, the partnership, the life we're building, we chose that together. Nobody gave it to us. Nobody sold it to us. We built it with our own hands, our own hearts, our own courage." Grant turned to look at her, and in the starlight, she was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. "You're incredible, you know that. I'm learning to believe it." She kissed him softly. "Because you believe it first." They sat there until late talking about their plans for the ranch, for the future, for the family they might have someday. And when they finally went to bed, it wasn't in separate rooms with locked doors and mistrust between them. It was together, in the home they'd fought for, in the life they'd chosen, in the love they'd built from ashes and pain and impossible hope. And as Grant held his wife close, listening to her breathing, even out into sleep, he thought about that day at the auction. How he'd seen her standing there in chains and known, somehow impossibly known, that his life was about to change. He'd been right. It had changed. They both had. They'd been broken and lost and scared, and they'd found each other in the darkness and decided to build something light. That's what redemption looked like, Grant realized. Not a single moment of salvation, but 1,000 small choices to be better, to do, better, to love better. It was messy and imperfect and hard. But it was real. And it was theirs. Lena stirred in her sleep, and Grant kissed her hair gently. "I've got you," he whispered, "and I'm never letting go." And he meant it. With every fiber of his being, with every beat of his heart, with every breath in his lungs, he meant it. Because freedom wasn't just given. It was built one act of grace at a time. And love wasn't just found. It was forged in fire and blood, and the impossible choice to keep fighting even when everything hurt. They'd survived the worst. They'd stood together against corruption and violence and hate. They'd rebuilt themselves and each other from the ground up. And now, finally, they were free. Not because someone had given them permission, but because they'd claimed it for themselves. Together, they'd built something beautiful from broken pieces, a home, a partnership, a love that would last the rest of their lives. And that was worth more than all the gold in Texas, more than all the land in the territory, more than anything else in this hard, beautiful, unforgiving world. They'd found each other in hell and built heaven together, and nothing, not time, not pain, not the ghosts of the past, could take that away from them now.